Hi, welcome to Storytime. Today's story is one that's pretty special to me and I know to my siblings, probably to my cousins too. We're gonna hear Goldilocks and the Three Bears today, and it's special because when I was growing up, any book that I brought my grandpa to read to me automatically became Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Didn't matter what it was. You could bring him Dr. Seuss. Once upon a time, there were three bears. You bring him The Hobbit. Once upon a time, there were three bears. The only time that a book did not come out as Goldilocks and the Three Bears was the year that we bought him a copy of Goldilocks and the Three Bears for his birthday. And he started telling a completely different story that time. I want to say it was Little Red Riding Hood, but I honestly don't remember. I just remember that it was not Goldilocks. And that was really special. And so this is for you, Grandpa. We love you and we miss you. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, there were three bears. A mama bear, a papa bear, and a wee little baby bear. And they lived in a small house in the woods. It was small, but it suited them well. It was cozy and snug and kept out the rain. Every morning when they'd get dressed, they'd open the window in their bedroom to let in the fresh air. They'd go downstairs, sit in their chairs, and wait for their porridge to be made. One morning they made their porridge and it came out a little too hot, so they decided to go for a walk while the porridge cooled off. As they were out walking in the woods, a young girl came by their house, and her name was Goldilocks. She peeked in through the windows, which was very inappropriate, no one should be a peeping Tom, and noticed that no one was in the house. So she broke in, which again, also not okay. We don't go breaking into people's houses. As she entered their house, she noticed the smell of food cooking. We're going to wait for that big truck. She noticed the smell of freshly cooked food and followed her nose into the kitchen where she found 3 bowls of porridge. There was a great big bowl, there was a medium-sized bowl, and there was a little bowl for Papa, Mama, and Baby Bear. She picked up the great big bowl, took a big old bite out of it, and promptly burned her mouth and started saying naughty words. She put the bowl down because it was too hot and picked up the medium-sized bowl. And she took a big old mouthful and it was too cold. It was gluey and nasty and gross. And so she picked up the third bowl, which one would think would be colder than the medium-sized bowl, but miraculously it wasn't. It was just right. And it was Baby Bear's, and she ate it all up. After filling her her belly full of porridge, she decided she could do with a rest. So she walked into their sitting room and found 3 delightful looking chairs. She sat in the largest chair, but found it to be too hard, for Papa Bear had a bad back and liked a firm seat to support his spine. And then she tried the medium-sized chair, and it was too soft. So then she tried the smallest of the chairs, Baby Bear's chair, and it fit her butt perfectly. And she wiggled and got comfortable, and while it was the right size for her, it was not the right strength for her, and she broke it and fell through to the floor. She said some more naughty words, because she was a very, very crude child, obviously, peeping into windows and breaking into houses. She's all stealing people's dinner. Saying naughty words is not above her, or beneath her, one of the two. So she started wandering around the house looking for a better place to take a nap. And she went upstairs and found their bedroom. And she jumped into the biggest bed there, and it was Papa's bed, and it was full of pillows, and she just kind of got lost in all the pillows, and she started thrashing around and moving them around, couldn't get comfortable. So she tried the next bed, which was Mama's bed, and it had too many blankets, and she tried snuggling up but got tangled something fierce. So naturally, she tried the third bed, and it fit her just right, and she snuggled down and promptly fell asleep. While she was sleeping, the three bears came home to have their breakfast. And as they came in, they noticed that their front door was open, which alarmed them. They came in, and the first thing they noticed was that the bowls on the counter in the kitchen had been disturbed. So they walked over and investigated, and Papa Bear noticed the spoon sticking straight up in the middle of his porridge, and he said, "Somebody's been eating my porridge." Mother Bear looked at hers, noticed a spoon sticking straight up in her porridge, and said, "Someone's been eating my porridge." And Baby Bear looked at his bowl, which was empty, and said, "And somebody's been eating my porridge, and they ate it all up." Curious, they decided to continue investigating their house, walked over to the sitting room, and Papa Bear noticed blonde hairs draped on the back of his chair and said, "Someone's been sitting in my chair." Mama Bear noticed a butt print in the seat of her chair and said, "And someone's been sitting in my chair." And Baby Bear looked and noticed that his chair was completely destroyed and splinters on the floor and said, "And somebody's been sitting in my chair, and they broke it into kindling." They decided to go upstairs and see if anyone had ransacked their room. They made it upstairs, and Papa Bear noticed that the pillows on his bed were scattered across the room and said, "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed." And Mama Bear looked at her bed, which had the blankets all wrapped up and torn apart and thrown to one side, and said, "Somebody's been sitting in my bed." And Baby Bear looked at his bed and said, "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed, and they're still there." And Goldilocks, who had slept through Mama and Papa Bear talking because they had nice deep rumbly voices, woke at the shrill voice of Baby Bear and was terrified to see three bears, because even though Baby Bear was a young bear, he was still a great big bear. And she was just terrified. Three bears. She was convinced they were going to eat her like she'd eaten the porridge. So she jumped out that open window and ran off, never to be seen. The end. Might be different than some versions that you've heard. This, again, I'm telling stories kind of my way. The original printed version of the Goldilocks and the Three Bears was actually just called The Story of the Three Bears. It was printed in the middle of the 1800s in London as a poem. And it was about three bachelor bears and a nasty old woman who broke into their house. And the next time it got told, it was changed to Goldilocks, and eventually it became a family of bears. And so my version takes a little bit from all the different versions. The old woman was nasty and dirty and swore pretty foully, and I just included she said naughty words. She was also dirty and thieving, and mentioned her trying to steal their silverware, which is interesting. So if you are fascinated by that, I recommend a quick Google search of The Story of the Three Bears, and you should see a copy pop up on Google Books. There's a digitized copy. I hope you enjoyed it. This is one of my favorites, in that it was something Grandpa always did as a joke. So I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you next time. Bye!